was the commander-in-chief for the Central Command, which gave him responsibility for Afghanistan, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and of course presumably the covert war inside Iran. And what Fallon did is, of course, in public, we know that he was publicly against the bombing of Iran. He just didn't think it made sense. What I discovered is that was a factor, of course, in getting him in a lot of trouble, particularly with Mr. Cheney. But another major issue for Fallon in terms of the Cheney, I should say, attitude towards him is Fallon discovered that all of the special operations inside Iraq he knew about. He certainly knew about some of the cross-border stuff in Iran, but the big stuff going on. There's been a new task force set up in Afghanistan under the Joint Special Operations Command, under the rubric of the $400 million that we discussed earlier. And he couldn't get into it. He wasn't cleared. He wasn't on what they call a bigot list. And, here, I've actually been told, here's some, lieutenant commander telling a four-star admiral, sir, I can't discuss this with you because you're not cleared. He pushed. He wanted to know, this is what they call an AO, his area of operation. He wanted to know what the hell's going on in his area of responsibility, and he did not like Special Forces teams operating. I don't think he was against what they were doing necessarily. He just didn't like, he wanted to know. He wanted the responsibility to know, and that caused him a lot of trouble. And actually, what's amazing to me for this story is Fallon did talk about some of this in a rather indirect, but enough of a way. And one of his former commanders, when he was a two-star general, a very bright a Marine general named Jack Sheehan, who last year was asked to be the czar for the war by the White House. It's sort of if you want guys with integrity running your military, he's one of them. Sheehan talked to me on the record about it and said, in effect, Fallon's problem, his real problem is with a certain group in the White House. And we all know who that is. That's the Vice President's office. I still think, personally, and I don't know because one can't know. I have some access to the Vice President's office, but I don't know what the President thinks. I still think Cheney's the top dog. We always hear a story he's not, but I still think he's the top dog on a lot of issues in this government.
Well, I want to turn to Iran's reaction to the threats of a possible attack from Israel. This is what the Iranian Foreign Minister, Manouchehr Mottaki, had to say at a conference on Sunday in Pakistan.
We do not see the Zionist regime in a situation in which they would engage in such adventurism. They know full well what the consequences of such an act would be in the region.
Seymour Hersh, your response.
Well, of course. Look, Israel can't do it because I just described earlier the kind of anti-missile and anti-defense they would run into. This is a country, Iran, that's been spending hundreds of millions, if not billions, on improving its defenses at $140 a barrel. The idea of a sanction regime hurting them seriously is comical. They're making a lot of money and they're buying a lot of weapons. And they've improved their security to the point where Israel, it's the idea of Israel, which has very limited aircraft and very limited cruise missile capability, it's just not going to be able to do much. And I can tell you that inside the White House, Cheney has said more than once that Israel's not going to go. If Israel wants to go, we'll have to go, because if they went, we'd be blamed anyway. And so the whole, how much of this is posturing from Israel and how much of this is posturing by us, I don't know. I'd love to have, at the end of this regime, to be proven to be dead wrong on all this stuff, that it never was going to happen. But I do think the idea of Israel going is not realistic because they simply don't have the firepower. We're the ones that can do it. And this is a presidency, and you have to listen to what these guys say. They're pretty consistent. If you listen to what they said before the invasion of Iraq in '03, when a lot of people, including me, thought it was just so crazy that they wouldn't do it. If you listen to what they say about this country, they've been about Iran. It's been pretty clear. They couldn't care less what the NIE said. They believe Iran either has or will have a weapon and will destabilize Israel and would use it against Israel, even if it meant suicide, ignoring the fact that Iran has never attacked anybody outside of its borders for, 280 years or something like that as a major power. They've never done an offensive operation. That's just a simple fact. That's just ignored by this White House. They talk about Iran as, internally, their position is, we're not going to leave the presidency with Iran incapable of blowing up the world. And they believe they are capable, and they want to stop it. If they can't stop it with negotiations, I don't know what they'll do, particularly if Obama's elected. That would definitely, or Obama looks like he's going to win, that would definitely increase the chances of the president doing something. If McCain wins, I've been told by people who listen to conversations there, it'll be easier for them because they think McCain is on the same wavelength, which he is on them, on all these issues, and that McCain could possibly do it in the middle of next year or whenever he chose. But if Obama's the winner, that'll put pressure on Bush. And Bush says all the time, he just said it a few weeks ago, I don't care what people think about me. I'm going to do the right thing. And that's, we have the most radical president we've ever had leading our country right now. And he's completely uneducable. And if that doesn't scare the hell out of you, it scares the hell out of me, I'll tell you.
Finally, Seymour Hersh, what are the groups that the U.S. is funding right now in Iran, the opposition groups?
Well, the enemy of my enemy is your enemy. Certainly, we've been doing a lot of stuff with the MEK, the Kolk, who are these wackos that have been doing stuff inside Iran from their little base in Iraq for years and going cross-border stuff. They're still doing a lot of stuff. They're a pretty corrupt organization. They're banking a lot of the money we give them, but they're still doing a lot. You have, as you know, Iran is a Shia-dominated country. But you have a number of Sunni groups, the Baluchis, who live on the edge, that is, on the borders, with the Kurds, Sunni Kurds who don't like the government. Many elements of them do not, and they're getting funded. The Azawari Arabs, who are Shia, about 50% of the population. There's also some dissidents there. So we're dumping a lot of money into various groups. The Jandala, which is a really crazy Salafist group that's done a lot of, you can always buy them, pay them money to kill people. Many of their younger people have gone to the same madras as the Taliban, and they espouse they're Sunni of some of the al-Qaeda values, whatever that means, because Osama bin Laden is just where he is. There's a lot of other stuff going on in the name of al-Qaeda. But there's a number of groups that we probably wouldn't look at all. If it wasn't, we would find to be, a hostile, crazy, on the fringe, jihadists almost. And we're funding them because they're against the central government. You know what it's like? Somebody once said to me, one of the guys that I deal with, and he said it's like if the Iranians are coming in there and looking around for groups, it's like if the Iranians came to America and they wanted to cause trouble. And here's this group called the Sons of the Revolution, these rebels from the South. And they have this flag, and they can't even fly their rebel flag anymore. Even in the state of Georgia, their law says they can't do it. What a group to, wow, this would be a great group to try and talk to, see if we can get them to go up against the government, not knowing they're coming up, the Sons of Revolution are totally loyal to America in every sense. We're flying blind. We don't know who we're flying, who we're giving money to. And the idea that Iran is not a tribal country. It's not an Arab country. It's a Persian country. It's a country with as solid in terms of its national identity as Paris, as France or Germany. It's been 200-300 years. The idea that you're going to cause significant trouble internally is a smoke dream. What this White House wants to do with these new operations, yes, they're continuing the old game of collecting intelligence and causing trouble. The real thing I think they want from JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, which are the hunter-killer teams of America. I think Cheney would love to get a scientist, a nuclear scientist, and bring him back to America and have him publicly testify to the fact that, yes, indeed, Iran has, 30 secret bomb factories and is a major nuclear power, just like the president believes, I think, when he goes to bed in his dreams. And they would like to have that. They would also like to create enough chaos in the country, kinetic stuff, bombings and sabotage, which is growing up, by the way, since this operation began. And there's obviously a connection, but I don't have any empirical evidence for it. But in the last 4 months, the number of incidents inside Iran in terms of domestic violence, bombings and attacks have just gone up exponentially. And clearly there's a connection, but I don't have anybody telling me that. It's just logical. We'd like to see the Iranian central government to crack down in some vigorous way against the Baluchis and other groups and create a situation where there is actual open dissidence, open warfare. Then perhaps we can come in. The problem America has, the Bush-Cheney administration, is that the American public overwhelmingly is not very interested in a bombing of Iran, despite all the bellicose talk.
Seymour Hersh, we're going to leave it there.
Okay.
I want to thank you very much for being with us. Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Seymour Hersh. His piece appears in the latest New Yorker magazine. It's called Preparing the Battlefield.